Hello and welcome back to the BA Sports Podcast. It is the 2026 NFL season, and today we're kicking off our 2026 Fantasy Football Positional Preview, starting with quarterback. We'll quickly run through both of our quarterback rankings and tiers, and then get into our sleepers, breakouts, and busts, finishing with our quarterback draft strategy. Without further ado, let's just get it going right into Tanner's quarterback rankings and tiers, starting off, and then we'll roll from there. Here we go.
All righty, ladies and gentlemen, in Tier 1 at the quarterback position, we've got three guys this year. It's going to be Josh Allen with an ADP at around 26, Lamar Jackson, and Drake May. Worthy to note that Allen and Jackson have long been the cream of the crop among fantasy quarterbacks, and May proved last season with the quarterback 2 finish that he can also post high-end total for fantasy managers. Kicking it off in Tier 2, we have Jalen Hurts, followed by Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels, and Caleb Williams. Note that 4 quarterbacks in this tier have either been elite in the past or have the ability to join Tier 1 with a highly productive 2026 campaign. Managers who don't want to spend a top 50 pick on a quarterback but still want a high-end signal caller should target these players. Starting things off in Tier 3, we've got Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott, Jaxson Dart, Bo Nix, and Trevor Lawrence. This is the tier of quarterbacks at which I start to consider drafting the position. They have either already finished a season as a high-end starter or, in Dart's case, have the upside to become one. And these players don't come without a high price tag, according to their ADP data. Starting things off in Tier 4, we've got San Francisco's quarterback Brock Purdy, followed by Patrick Mahomes, reigning league MVP Matthew Stafford, new Vikings quarterback Kyler Murray, and old reliable Jared Goff in Detroit. In the event that I don't draft someone from the third tier, I'm absolutely going to get at least one and maybe 2 members of this tier. Each of these quarterbacks already has had at least one top 10 finish on their fantasy resume and possesses the skills to return a great profit on investment. These are not what I would call perfect players, whether it's due to past or future injury concerns or past inconsistencies in the stat sheets. Still, if you would like to wait on quarterbacks like me, this is the tier you'll be targeting because the values are just so intriguing. Looking at Tier 5, we start with Baker Mayfield, Tyler Shuck, Jordan Love, Malik Willis, and Danny Dimes. This tier includes 5 quarterbacks with question marks, but who can also exceed expectations and become weekly fantasy starters, especially in Superflex leagues. Shuck is maybe one of the 2 biggest breakout candidates at the position this season, and Malik Willis' skills as a runner make him a strong sleeper. Danny Dimes, coming off a torn Achilles, played at a high level in 2025. Now moving on over to Tier 6, we have Cam Ward, CJ Stroud, Super Bowl champion Sam Darnold, Jacoby Brissett, and Bryce Young. Now, chances are none of these quarterbacks will emerge as weekly starters in traditional leagues. Instead, they'll be utilized as matchup-based starters. Cam Ward is the most attractive player in the tier and will be a popular sleeper, but a rise to stardom and into one of the top 3 tiers is still unlikely, at least in 2026. These quarterbacks will be available late in drafts. Followed up by Tier 7, we have Fernando Mendoza, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, Geno Smith, and Tua Tagovailoa. These quarterbacks might or might not even be drafted in one quarterback's league, but all will be drafted in Superflex formats. Mendoza might not even be the starter in Las Vegas to begin the season, and Tua will be battling Michael Penix Jr. for the starting job in Atlanta. Last but not least, in Tier 8, we have Shedeur Sanders, Michael Penix Jr., Kirk Cousins, J.J. McCarthy, Mac Jones, Carson Beck, Old Man Joe Flacco, and Justin Fields. A few quarterbacks in this tier, such as Sanders, Penix, and Cousins, have a chance to be Week 1 starters for their respective teams. Cousins, we know, is going to be the Week 1 starter. However, their projected fantasy values are as low as they can get heading into drafts. None will have their names called in traditional leagues. Now, Brady, want to swing things back over to you and ask you, what are your quarterback tiers looking like, and where do you have these guys ranked?
Yeah, Tanner, I've got 24 quarterbacks I'm going to go over with the listeners, broken up into 6 tiers, and my first tier, pretty much the same as yours. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Drake May round out my top tier for fantasy quarterbacks this season. There is no one more reliable than Josh Allen, because no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. And Lamar Jackson coming in at number 2, expected to bounce back after what was a disappointing season last year with a whole new offensive coordinator and coach. I think Lamar rebounds and is the QB2 on the year. Drake May coming in at QB3, looking to keep it going with A.J. Brown as his new wide receiver 1 in that offense. Tier 2 starts off with none other than Joe Burrow, and followed by Joe Burrow. It's going to be Jalen Hurts, another mobile quarterback, Jaden Daniels at 6, and then Justin Herbert. Rounding out tier 2 at QB7. I actually am higher on him this year than probably any other year, and we'll talk about him later, but expect a whole new look offense under the Mike McDaniel system in LA for the Chargers. Tier 3. Starting off with the Cowboys, Dak Prescott. Now, I had him QB7 last year. I'm still higher than consensus this year. I think he's going to keep it on the gas pedal with this offense. George Pickens still there. CeeDee Lamb still there. Them two healthy. I think there's no better offense in football. Caleb Williams at number 9. And then Trevor Lawrence at 10. That's my tier 3. For those 3 quarterbacks, I think Caleb Williams has the chance to expand on his season last year under Ben Johnson, and Luther Burden III in second, and Rome Odunze. Need both of them healthy for a breakout year with Caleb Williams. Trevor Lawrence, Liam Cohen's offense looks to be exciting this year. Can't wait to see what they have in store in Jacksonville. They have a plethora of receivers. And starting out tier 4, some may not agree with me, but it is Patrick Mahomes leading it off. I'm much higher than consensus on him, but I think Kenneth Walker in the run game is going to prove valuable for this Kansas City Chiefs offense. So I've got tier 4, Mahomes, Kyler Murray at 12, Jaxson Dart at 13, Brock Purdy at 14, and Bo Nix at 15. That is my tier 4 quarterbacks. A lot of sleepers you can get in this range, as Tanner mentioned. If you want to wait, this is the time to pick your sleeper quarterbacks that are going way later than you expect from years prior. Tier 5, still amazing quarterback selection. Starting off, Jared Goff at 16, Baker Mayfield at 17, Jordan Love at 18, Tyler Shuck at 19, and reigning league MVP Matthew Stafford. I know I'm a lot lower on him than consensus, but QB 20 for me. I still think he's great value, although he's going super early, and I think the other guys will get valuable later. Tier 6, this is the round out my top 24. Malik Willis, arguably the favorite sleeper this year with his rushing ability, as Tanner mentioned. Quarterback 21 for me. Quarterback 22, CJ Stroud. Quarterback 23, reigning Super Bowl champion Sam Darnold. And then quarterback 24, Danny Dimes. Will he be fully healthy to start the season? I don't know, but he's better than Anthony Richardson. So throw him out there as another sleeper option for you. And that's going to round out all of my tiers for the top 24 quarterbacks. And let's get right into the sleepers now for your teams. I know we've already mentioned them, Tanner. Mentioned a couple in our rankings, but now let's get into depth on why we like who we like, and who do you like as some sleepers this year for this upcoming 2026 season.
Right. I feel like it's only right we start with Malik Willis, seeing that both of us touched on that and how he's one of the favorites at the quarterback position for sleepers. So look, we know he's going to be the starter in Miami. He signed a big contract, 3 years, $67.5 million with the Dolphins. So by default, his value is on the rise. Now I know he doesn't have a great group of pass catchers, right? They traded Jalen Waddle to the Broncos. Tyreek Hill is not with them anymore, but still, his potential as a rusher is what drives his fantasy stock. In 6 career starts, he averaged 45 rushing yards, which projects to be more than 760 over a full 17 games. Since 1972, Brady, signal callers who have rushed for at least 700 yards have finished in the top 10 over 70% of the time, and not one has finished worse than QB 15. That was Lamar Jackson, who would have finished in the top 10 had he not been limited to 12 games in 2021. This all makes Malik Willis a very intriguing quarterback 2 selection in the later rounds of your fantasy drafts this season. Moving on over to the Tennessee Titans, we got to talk about Cam Ward. Look, he had a mostly forgettable rookie season, but he did score 15 or more fantasy points in each of his 3 games during the fantasy playoffs. The future looks much brighter, though, as the Titans added Wan'Dale Robinson as a free agent and drafted Carnell Tate with the 4th pick. What's more, the team signed Brian Daboll to be its offensive coordinator, and this is all great news for Cam Ward's fantasy value. Next, I want to talk about Fernando Mendoza, number 1 pick in the first round, Las Vegas Raider. Now, look, I've mentioned to you, Brady, before that I don't see Mendoza emerging into a high-end fantasy quarterback in his career. Heck, he might not even open the season as a starter in Vegas with Kirk Cousins on the roster. But I mean, he's very likely to get his chance to shine at some point as a rookie. However, like Tyler Shuck, he could become a useful waiver wire ad and matchup-based starter in best case scenario during his rookie season. Now, onto the non-traditional sleepers, and trust me, I am reaching here. Tua Tagovailoa of the Atlanta Falcons. Look, he's going to compete with Michael Penix Jr., who's coming off another knee injury for the starting job in Atlanta. While he struggled in his final season with the Dolphins, I mean, Tua has been a competent fantasy option in the past, right? And the Falcons have a lot of talent on offense. Playing most of his games indoors this season is also an advantage, and he could be in many, many high-scoring games. I think he could emerge as a viable waiver wire option at some point in the season. And then last but not least on this sleepers category, of course, I'm reaching here again, but we got to mention Deshaun Watson of the Cleveland Browns. Look, if you thought Tua was a reach, I present you Deshaun Watson, all right? A former fantasy superstar. He'll compete with Shedeur Sanders to be the Browns starting quarterback. Playing in the offense of new coach Todd Monken should be a positive, and the team has plenty of young playmakers in Quinshad Judkins, Harold Fannin Jr., Casey Concepcion, and Denzel Boston. If Deshaun Watson wins the job, he could bring back some fantasy value. That's all I've got for the sleepers, Brady. Who do you have amongst your list of your favorite quarterback sleepers for the 2026 season?
Yeah, I have a couple, and they're different from yours. And I think you touched on them a little in your rankings, which is amazing. But people are sleeping on Patrick Mahomes. I might be Texas Tech bias over here, but Mahomes literally has top 5 upside, and his ADP right now is quarterback 14 average on Fantasy Pros. He's going as high as QB 12 on Sleeper, which, I mean, he should be going as a top 12 quarterback. He is a top 12 quarterback. He's got Eric Bieniemy back, which I think is going to help him a lot. Not to mention he's got a new offensive weapon in Kenneth Walker, who I think is going to take every bit of pressure off of him in this wide receiving core. Now, you can expect limited mobility from Patrick Mahomes, but I just think his ADP is strictly because of his injury, and I think he is easily going to average 24 to 28 points per game. And keep in mind, he just needs Rashee Rice to stay healthy. Maybe Xavier Worthy gets a little more action this year. But, I mean, don't fret him to dump it off to Kenneth Walker. I mean, I think that is going to be a big addition. It's going to take a lot of pressure off. They might load the box a little more. Kenneth Walker was the 20th ranked NFL player in highest stack boxes in the NFL last year. And arguably no running back that Patrick Mahomes has had, besides maybe Kareem Hunt early in his career, was able to like provide this help. And I think these stack boxes, because they got to make a decision on defense. Are you going to stack the box to stop Kenneth Walker, or are you going to have to just play cover 2, cover 4, and just drop back and make sure Mahomes doesn't beat you with wide receivers over the top? Because they're going to have to choose, and whatever they choose may be a wrong decision, because I just think with the balance of this offense now with Kenneth Walker there, I think Mahomes provides significant value, and you can get him late. You don't have to get him early now. Because the quarterbacks that are going early are Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Drake May, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, and maybe you throw Jaden Daniels in there. But now everyone's getting pushed back. I mean, you can get Mahomes after pick 100 and feel pretty confident about it. Even if you don't feel confident about it, pair him with one of these sleepers that Tanner and I are also talking about. Malik Willis, guy with that can provide great rushing ability on the ground and get you a solid floor in leagues that maybe 4 point per passing touchdown, 6 point per passing touchdown, still great. You can get guys like Brock Purdy, Jaxson Dart, if he drops, Kyler Murray. I mean, there's plenty of guys out in this like range of this tier that I think is just great value. But Mahomes, especially, I think is a great sleeper to target this year. Another one, Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions. I'll just keep harping on him. He's got a lot of indoor games this year. Last year he was QB 12 and he was going as QB 18 in average draft position. So keep in mind, his average draft position over the last 4 years was quarterback 18 or higher. And he's finished quarterback 15 or higher in every year. So I think you're drafting him at his floor, and his ceiling is top 12 quarterback 1 upside in an offense that I expect to be high powered. They lost David Montgomery. Does that hurt their ground game a little bit? I mean, they still have Jahmyr Gibbs. Are they going to lean on the ground game as much? They get Sam Laporta back. They have Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. This is a high-powered offense. And then, dump it off to Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, Jared Goff indoors is just prime time, and he may provide better value for you in 6 point per passing touchdown leagues, but 4 point per passing touchdown leagues may be a little bit. I mean, definitely not as much as 6 point, but Goff has exceeded expectations every year, and I expect him to do it again. Drew Petzig, new offensive coordinator. I don't know if that will affect him as much. No Ben Johnson. That definitely had something to do with it over the last couple of years. Not last year, though. He still did good without him. But Drew Petzig, just keep in mind, new offensive coordinator, but they did throw the most in the NFL last year in Arizona for that offense. Now, it did have something to do with them being like one of the worst teams in the league, probably. But I think the Lions are going to lean on Goff in these indoor games. They have all the weapons to do so. So expect big things out of Jared Goff this year. People are sleeping on him. Other guys I'm just going to throw out there real quick. Malik Willis, as you mentioned, Tanner, Baker Mayfield, Brock Purdy. I think all these guys are going lower. I'm going to throw in Kyler Murray again, even though I'm going to get into him in the next section. But that's kind of what I have for a couple of sleepers. Some deep sleepers to QB that I like that you threw out there, Tua Tagovailoa. Someone's got to command that Falcons offense. And I mean, you can get him late in a 2 QB super flex league if you need a deep sleeper. Daniel Jones, rushing upside, maybe a little limited coming off injury, but I still like him. And then Jordan Love, another guy that is just falling down the draft board. But yeah, let's get into breakouts now. This one's going to be interesting because there are a couple breakouts that I have that guys have kind of already broken out maybe earlier in their career, but I want to see it again. Tanner, who do you have in your breakouts?
Yeah, starting off the breakouts at the quarterback position, I got to mention my favorite one this year. It's going to be Jaxson Dart of the New York Football Giants. Now, in my opinion, on this list that I'm about to provide, I think Dart is one of just 2 true breakout quarterbacks. He finished 13th in points as a rookie, but he averaged more than 17 fantasy points in his 14 games, which only 12 of those 14 he started. He's a true dual threat quarterback. He rushed for 487 yards and 9 touchdowns last season, but he also found success as a passer, and he did it all without his top option, Malik Neighbors. We know who Malik Neighbors is now. With Neighbors and Cam Scat back in action, I think Dart's going to have plenty of weapons and a terrific shot at being this year's Drake May. Going on to the next guy I've got, it's got to be Brock Purdy, right? I mean, he already has a top 10 fantasy finish on his resume, but he's still not being picked in the top 90 players based on early ADP data. Guys, I just finished a 14-team league, 6-point per passing touchdown. Brock Purdy was not even selected in this draft. Looking at roster, he's rostered in 90% of leagues. Somehow he slips through the cracks. Picked him up immediately to back up who? Jaxson Dart, the first guy I mentioned. Anyways, guys, back to Brock Purdy. While he finished just 23rd among quarterbacks a season ago, his 19.7 points per game average was 6th among quarterbacks with a minimum of 9 starts. Purdy is more of a traditional draft bargain than a breakout player, I'd say, but he's worth targeting nonetheless for managers like me and Brady who like to wait to draft a starting signal caller. Next, we're going to talk about the new face in Minnesota, but the old face for me and Brady has been kicking our ass since high school, and that's Kyler Murray of the Minnesota Vikings. Now, look, we've probably seen the reports, guys, but in case you hadn't seen the reports, this competition's already almost over with. I think Kyler Murray has established himself in this competition. I mean, even the early reports coming out of Vikings camp suggested that it wasn't even really a competition at all. Murray has been the clear leader. That's not really a surprise either, as J.J. McCarthy was mostly dreadful last season. I mean, but still, JJ was so bad that he turned Justin Jefferson from an elite fantasy wide receiver into a risk reward flex starter, right? I mean, it just can't get much worse than what we've seen from JJ McCarthy thus far. Murray, he already has a top 10 fantasy quarterback in 4 of his 5 full years, and he could be a steal based on ADP, where he's getting drafted as QB 17. Next on this list, and I've only got one more after this, it's going to be Tyler Shuck out of the New Orleans Saints. He was great down the stretch in his rookie year, put up 17 plus fantasy points in all but one of his final 8 games. Based on total points, he was the 8th best quarterback over the final 5 weeks of the fantasy season. I think the Saints really did a good job in supporting him in the offseason too. They added Travis Etienne Jr. and rookie Jordan Tyson. Now, we did just hear a report today that Jordan Tyson's going to be out for the next 2 months. But while he can be defined as either a breakout or sleeper candidate, I really like Shuck, and I think he's certainly in the conversation as a potential fantasy draft bargain. Excuse me. Last but not least, rounding off this list is going to be Danny Dimes of the Indianapolis Colts. Jones was phenomenal sleeper last season before he got hurt, right? He averaged 18.8 fantasy points in his 12 full games. Reports of his return from a torn Achilles have been really positive, and the fact that the Colts inked him to a 2-year, $88 million extension means the starting job is his when he's back at 100%. Now, early ADP data has Jones coming off the board as the QB 26 in the 150s. So the veteran has all the look of a potential draft bargain in fantasy football drafts. That's going to round out my list of breakouts at the quarterback position. Brady, who do you have amongst your favorite breakouts at the quarterback position?
Couple of repeats, but let me go over them. These first two are kind of re-breaking out. Kyler Murray has not been what we've wanted him to be over the past couple of years, but enter the QB whisperer Kevin O'Connell, who will help Kyler. He's helped Sam Darnold, now Super Bowl champion, Danny Dimes. I mean, anyone that's gone through there has just been exponentially better after coming out of there. Like, it's just crazy the turnaround he can provide for quarterbacks struggling to find, what they can do. Arizona just not the greatest fit for Kyler. I think a new scene fits him very well. He's going quarterback 17 in ADP right now. He's going as high as QB 16 on Yahoo, but he's down there, and I think he can be a top 12 quarterback. I would take Kyler ahead of Bo Nix, Tyler Shuck, Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield. Like I said, I've got him as a top 12 quarterback this year. I think with weapons in Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, you got Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones in the run game. TJ Hawkinson can provide some tight end volume for Kyler Murray. I just think this is a better offense overall for Kyler, and their defense is going to be pretty good in Minnesota as well. It's going to be one of the top divisions in the NFL, always is one of the most competitive divisions. And I think Kyler Murray is going to come to play. He needs to perform to get another contract. So I think, this is what the Vikings have been looking for. JJ McCarthy's not the answer. Kyler Murray won that job. Hopefully he can re-break out and provide this value for you later in drafts if you wait on a quarterback. I like Kyler Murray a lot this year. And then Justin Herbert. We haven't seen him do anything since his sophomore year. He was a quarterback 2 on the year. It's hard to say breakout because he already technically broke out. He's QB2 on the year, his sophomore season, but he can be a top 5 quarterback in the Mike McDaniel offense. Dare I say a top 2 quarterback? He's going quarterback 10 right now in ADP. Actually, as we're recording this, he's moved up to quarterback 9. You can get him as high as quarterback 7 on Yahoo. Sleepers got him at quarterback 8. ESPN's got him at QB 14, which is insane, but that may have something to do with 4 point per passing touchdown. I still think he can provide some rushing upside for you. This offense under Mike McDaniel is going to definitely be a lot better, a little more balanced. They just need everyone to stay healthy, especially the offensive line for Justin Herbert. So I'm hoping these two guys can re-break out. Now let's get into some breakouts. I'm not going to go too in-depth on Tyler Shuck because you touched on him earlier, but I think Tyler Shuck has the ability to break out. Sucks that Jordan Tyson, is banged up already to begin the year, but he's still got Chris Olave. He's got Juwan Johnson. He's got a bunch of other targets around him. And the rookie tight end that they drafted, I really, really like him as a new target for Tyler Shuck. I think he could provide some good value. Tyler Shuck going later in drafts. I mean, you can pretty much steal him right now. In ADP is QB 20 overall. He's going as high as QB 19 on ESPN. So why not take a shot on him late? Pair him with a guy like Kyler Murray. Pair him with a guy like Patrick Mahomes, Bo Nix, Brock Purdy, you name it. Pair it up. And then Malik Willis is another breakout candidate that I have for this season. He's going as QB 21, as high as QB 18 on Sleeper. I think with his rushing upside, he can provide great value as a strong floor for your fantasy team. Now, Malik Willis scrambled on 15.1% of his dropbacks over the last 2 seasons, which leads all quarterbacks. That's more than Drake May, more than Jaxson Dart, more than Justin Fields, and more than Jaden Daniels. So if he can provide that solid floor for your leagues, especially I think he provides great value in 4-point per passing touchdown leagues, just because of his rushing upside. Now, granted, he doesn't have the receiving core that he had on Green Bay, but I still think someone in Miami is going to figure it out. I think maybe Greg Dulcich, who knows, but Malik Willis, definitely great value to take a shot on late and has the potential to break out this year. Now we're going to get into a section that I'm going to disagree with Tanner a little bit on, but the bust candidates for this season. Tanner, who are your bust candidates to underperform in this NFL season?
Yeah, I think you're really going to love my second bust at quarterback position, but we'll get started off with the first one, and that's going to be Jaden Daniels of the Washington Redskins. Yes, you heard that correctly. The Washington Redskins. Look, I'm just on the fence about JD5, or maybe I should say JD4. I don't want to upset the guy, but he was one of my favorite players in 2024, and he made good on those expectations. Unfortunately, injuries have limited him to 7 starts last season, during which he averaged 16.3 points per game. That's 4.6 fewer fantasy points than he had averaged in year one. While he is back at 100%, Daniel's thin frame and his style of play make him more prone to injuries. I mean, the Redskins' passing attack is also just devoid of reliable pass catchers beyond Terry McLaurin and now Stephon Diggs, and I think that could hurt his level of production as a passer in 2026. Now, secondly, we have the great Patrick Mahomes on my bust list this season. Now, look, he was in the midst of a solid statistical season in 2025. He was averaging more than 20 fantasy points per game, but that was before he sustained a torn ACL that required surgery, ending his year early. It should also be noted that Mahomes rushed for career highs in yards with 422 and touchdowns 5, despite missing the final 3 games. Coming off of a knee injury and with the addition of Kenneth Walker III, I think it's hard to expect Mahomes to put up similar rushing totals in 2026. Now, that doesn't mean that he won't still be a QB1 in fantasy drafts, but he hasn't been an elite fantasy quarterback since 2022. So, in my opinion, folks, don't fall for the name in drafts. Mahomes is no longer a high end fantasy option. Moving down, we got Trevor Lawrence of the Jags. He's coming off his best season as a pro, averaging nearly 20 fantasy points per game to finish fourth in points among quarterbacks. I fear his magical season, however, mostly due to his likelihood of regression as a runner. In 2025, Lawrence rushed for a career high 359 yards and 9 touchdowns. That's more rushing scores than he had recorded in his previous 2 years combined. Lawrence isn't Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts either, so those totals are destined to fall. As a result, I'd avoid him because rushing regression is imminent. Moving on to Matthew Stafford. Look, he's coming off of an MVP season that saw him post better than 4,707 passing yards and a career high 46 touchdown passes. That was good enough to finish third in fantasy points. His 20.6 points per game average was also his best since 2019, and it was nearly 7 more than he averaged in 2024. Stafford also avoided injuries and started at least 16 games for the first time since 2021. The Rams' defense has improved big time with the additions of elite pass rusher Myles Garrett and cornerback Trent McDuffie, too. So Stafford will likely be in fewer negative game scripts. Everything points to the veteran regressing in 2026. Not to mention, is Aaron Donald coming out of retirement? Huh? 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 Last but not least on the bus list is going to be Jacoby Brisket, aka Jacoby Brissett. Brissett might be an odd option to this list, but hear me out. Hear me out. He's coming off his best season as a pro based on stats, throwing for 3,366 yards and 23 touchdowns in 12 starts. Brissett was the QB6 from week 6 to week 18, scoring more points than Justin Herbert, for crying out loud. Even Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes, he outscored all those guys. But let's be honest, that is not going to happen again. I mean, beware of the magical year going into 2026. So I wouldn't go into fantasy drafts thinking you're going to steal Brissett in the late rounds. I mean, chances are he's going to fall back into being a middling backup fantasy option. And that pretty much rounds out the list of my busts at the quarterback position. Brady, I know we have some indifferent opinions here. Who do you have amongst your list of quarterback busts?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the one we agree with both. Matthew Stafford. I just think he's going way too high. His ADP right now is quarterback 12. That's ahead of Brock Purdy, Patrick Mahomes, Bo Nix, Jared Goff, Kyler Murray, Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, Tyler Shuck, Malik Willis. Keep going, but I think that's enough. Guys that I would want later than him, and I just think he's going way too high for my rankings. He's quarterback 20. I'd rather grab Goff, rather grab Purdy, Kyler, Baker Mayfield, any of those guys over Matthew Stafford. And then I don't know if he's gonna have Puka Nacua all season. Could be suspended. We don't know that yet. That's still a question mark. And I think they're just going to come with a more balanced approach. They got Blake Corum and Kyron Williams. They can utilize both of them. I think they're going to utilize the tight ends. I just don't see it for Matthew Stafford this year. He's going way too high. I mean, he is the reigning MVP, but he had a career high passing touchdown rate of 7.7%, QB4 in fantasy points per game. I just don't feel comfortable taking him at QB 12. I'd rather just keep waiting to accumulate my quarterback value. And then another quarterback that I would wait on and take if he falls to me, but right now he's going way too high. His ADP has fallen one slot as we're recording this episode. He's actually quarterback 10 right now, still going in the top 100. It's Jaxson Dart of the New York Giants. I think he has top 10 upside for sure based on his rushing ability, but my draft strategy is wait on quarterbacks. So currently, I don't feel the need to take him unless he falls right into my lap, which honestly, Tanner, he fell right into your lap when you took him on Yahoo in your fantasy league. So that's a perfect example. If he falls in certain formats, he's going way higher than others. He's quarterback 7 in ADP on ESPN and quarterback 7 on Sleeper. And then on Yahoo, CBS, so Yahoo's going quarterback 10, and then CBS he's going quarterback 13. So CBS leagues, you can definitely take advantage of Jaxson Dart falling that far, which honestly lines up right with my ranking at QB 13. I don't mind that, but for as high as he's going, I'm not taking him at QB 7 for ESPN or Sleeper. I would caution against that. I think you can wait for better value later on. Justin Herbert, I'd rather have in a sleeper in the ESPN league. I'd rather have Dak Prescott than Jaxson Dart. So he's more of those two more of the ADP busts. A guy that I think could bust that's in the top 5 quarterbacks. I honestly think Jalen Hurts. Take my Cowboy bias out of it. I think Jalen Hurts, if Devontae Smith's not healthy, he loses A.J. Brown, he only has Dallas Goedert. He really just needs his O-line to be super healthy. Now, don't get me wrong. He's done great at the beginning of the year and maybe through the middle of the year. But then after that, he kind of has fallen off over the last couple of years. But he's going quarterback 6, 70th overall. He's going as high as quarterback 5 in ESPN. I just don't see the value in taking Jalen Hurts. I think that's more to the point of I don't want to take a quarterback that early unless it's Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, maybe Drake May. Other than that, I'll wait it out and just let the pieces fall to me in order. Tanner, do you want to go into draft strategy now? Any thoughts on sleepers, breakouts, and busts before we go to the draft strategy, which we've kind of already mentioned?
No, I think we did a good job touching on everything. Certainly some free agent ads and departures that we could have discussed, but we will get into those when we talk about the running backs, receivers, and tight ends in the next couple of episodes. But yeah, I'm ready for draft strategy and especially draft bargains at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
Starting off the top of my draft bargains list for the position, which I'm going to say Bo Nix of the Broncos. First of all, he's going as quarterback 15 with an ADP of around 110. I mean, guys, Bo Nix might be the most disrespected quarterback in fantasy football. despite consecutive QB7 finishes in his first 2 NFL season, he's still the QB 15 based on cumulative ADP data. I mean, what? The only
Crazy.
reason I can see for this fall is that he's coming back from a broken ankle, which he suffered in the 2025 postseason. But he has had no setbacks and has no limitations heading into camp. He has no limitations heading into week 1. And the Broncos also added Jalen Waddle to what was already a talented group of pass catchers. So what would cause Knicks to see a decrease in production? I don't see it, but I'll take the discount at QB 15.
Yeah.
Next,
To touch
Jared.
on that, Tanner, Bo Nix is going quarterback 10 in ESPN, but other than that, you can get him a lot later, like you said, QB 15. But the highest he's going, QB 10 on ESPN leagues.
Certainly good information right there, folks. Next on my list is going to be QB 16 in ADP, going with an ADP of about 115 overall. Look, if Bo Nix is the most disrespected fantasy quarterback, Jared Goff is a close second. Since he was traded to the Lions in 2021, Goff has finished as a top 10 quarterback 4 times. He has also put up 4,400 plus passing yards and at least 29 touchdown passes in each of those 4 years. And that includes a 2024 campaign with the career best 37 scoring strikes. Still, Goff is rarely ever in the top 12 in preseason quarterback rankings. If you like waiting on a signal caller like me and Brady, however, Goff is almost always one of the best potential targets in the middle to late rounds. Next on my list of ADP bargains at the position is going to be Kyler Murray. We touched on him a lot already, but just to add a little bit more, he has a chance to be an absolute steal in drafts. While he is coming off a subpar 2025, he finds himself in an amazing situation in Minnesota, like you said, Brady, and Kevin O'Connell's last 7 seasons as an offensive coordinator or head coach, quarterbacks have had a lot of success. Just to read the resume, folks: Matthew Stafford, QB5, Kirk Cousins, QB7, and QB19 due to injury, but he was 6th in points per game. And Sam Darnold, QB9, they were all fantasy starters, every single one of them. Now, when you factor in that Murray has finished in the top 10 in 4 of his 5 full seasons in the NFL, it's obvious why the veteran could be a draft steal. Next on this list, we have Malik Willis of the Dolphins. Again, I know we talked about him. Look, no one's going to mistake Malik Willis for Dan Marino as a passer, all right? But it's his rushing chops that make him a potential draft bargain. In 6 career starts, he averaged 45 rushing yards. That projects to more than 760 over a full 17 games. Like I mentioned before, since 1972, quarterbacks who have rushed for at least 700 yards have finished in the top 10 more than 70% of the time. And not one has finished worse than QB 15, which was Lamar Jackson, who would have finished in the top 10 had he not played just 12 games in 2021. To me, that makes Malik Willis just totally worthwhile a QB2 selection, I would say, late in drafts. Mm-hmm. Last but not least, we have Cam Ward. And yeah, I touched on him. I don't want to repeat what I said about Malik Willis earlier and do the same with Cam Ward, but it's the same thing. They added Wan'Dale Robinson, drafted Carnell Tate, Brian Dable's there. All the reports in camp have been positive about Cam Ward, and I think he has a chance to be one of the top fantasy sleepers this season. And he's going at ADP of QB 24 at around 163 overall. So that's my list of ADP draft bargains at the position. Now, as far as draft strategy is concerned, and Brady already touched on this really, but we like to wait. I am more than happy to go with 3 wide receivers, a running back, and maybe 2 running backs in my first 5 rounds, or 4 and 1, or 2 and 3 the other way, because the position is deep, and you look at guys that have had success in the last couple of years. you can find another Jacoby Brissett or Matthew Stafford or Drake May or Josh Allen or Jaden Daniels, these guys that either weren't getting drafted at all and turned into fantasy stars, or you could get them in the 10th round or later, and then they are must start week in and week out. So I do like to wait on the position in drafts, especially in PPR leagues. Now, if you're in a 6 point per passing touchdown league, then that might make you a little bit more inclined to go and get a quarterback early, because when the season's over and you compare their point totals to all these other positions, I mean, in those 6 point per passing touchdown leagues, the quarterbacks dominate. Um, but especially in super flex leagues, some of those guys that we mentioned, Shuck, Goff, Murray, Willis, Ward, the list goes on. They all have tremendous value, and they all need to be looked at being rostered, and most of them will. So, yeah, jump if you're gonna wait to get in the quarterbacks, like I mentioned in the tier section. Yeah, you really don't want to get outside that fourth tier. I'd say maybe even that fifth tier.
Yeah.
Um, just because that's really where those are people who can exceed expectations, and those are the people that have weekly fantasy starter potential, especially in superflex leagues. And that just goes back to Tyler Shuck being maybe one of the two biggest breakout candidates at the position, right? So yeah, that's all I've got for ADP draft bargains at the quarterback position and draft strategy. Just feel it out, be patient, and it'll come to you guys. Brady, what about you? What are you giving the viewers for draft advice at the position? And do you have any bargains?
Yeah, if you're listening in one of my leagues, close your ears, turn off the podcast. You don't want to hear anything from here on out. No, but draft strategy, I think there's two options, and there's plenty of different leagues, formats: 4 point per passing touchdown, 6 point per passing touchdown, super flex leagues, 2 quarterback leagues. Just make sure you know what league settings you are in. If you're in a new league and you don't fully know, go take a look. Now, I think the main thing is that I want to preach, same to you, wait on quarterback. That's one option. Then the second option is go hero quarterback and get a stud, get a top 5 quarterback early, get Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Drake May, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, get one of them early. Now, quarterbacks have definitely been falling. I mean, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and maybe Drake May are the 3 that you'll see going super, super early. Right now, Drake May's going 54th overall. So really it's just Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson going in the top 40. But still, like, that's a little too high for my liking. I like to get some wide receivers and running backs in these ranges, maybe even a tight end. Josh Allen's going quarterback 118th overall right now. Now, if you're in a super flex league, you will see quarterbacks go first off the board. If you've never played in a super flex league, this is your first year playing in it, you'll see quarterbacks go first off the board. You know, if you can grab a quarterback in round 1 that is a top 5 quarterback, by all means do that. Really depends on league size. That's another thing. If you have a 14 team league and you want to grab that stud quarterback, by all means do it. Just know that there will be consequences later on when you are looking for positional value elsewhere, and you won't be able to find it, but you will have a set it and forget it quarterback. Now, I am going to wait on quarterback this year. For my super flex league I may take one in the first round. It really depends on who falls to me. May take one in the second round. Really depends on who falls to me, but I wouldn't mind waiting. It it really just depends on who falls to you. I think if a quarterback that is a top 5 guy and you're like, this guy's fallen way too far, by all means, take him. If Josh Allen falls to like the 4th round, I mean, why not? It's like at a certain point of these top quarterbacks, if it's a value that you cannot pass up and you think you are stealing this quarterback, by all means, take the value in that and draft a quarterback early. These draft strategies definitely changed draft to draft. If you know who you're drafting with, it helps a lot. Know your league, and honestly use the tools on Fantasy Pros. They have, you can run and see what your tendencies of the other players in your league like to do, like to draft, where they like to draft. So by all means, use that Fantasy Pros tool because that has been super helpful. But I am waiting on quarterback because I think you can get value in the later rounds and just stack up running back, wide receiver early on. Get that depth built up before it gets super thin later on. And when it gets thin later on, that's when you start taking your quarterbacks. I'm good starting taking quarterbacks, if you want to pull the trigger on when Justin Herbert's going. Justin Herbert is going around QB9, 88th overall. I am fine with it. Like, I think he has top 2 upside, top 3 upside. Could contend for QB1 this year. But something else you want to keep in mind for when you're taking these quarterbacks later, I would probably take 2 of them. If you're taking a quarterback early on, take one. Really don't need a backup. I mean, you could throw a backup in there, but it depends on your bench space. But I wouldn't say you have to do it. Now, if you're going later, the later strategy, I would definitely do it. But also keep in mind that the quarterback one has scored at least 4 rushing touchdowns since 2019 and ran for at least 350 yards every year. Let me just name off a couple of these quarterbacks that are going later that could fit this bill as far as like draft values, that could contend for a quarterback one. Malik Willis, Jaxson Dart, Kyler Murray, those 3 definitely have the ability to contend. Bo Nix is another one. Now, if you want to go for some higher upside guys, Caleb Williams, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Lamar Jackson. I mean, all these guys rush a lot and score a lot of rushing touchdowns. Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, obviously Josh Allen, Drake May. Um, so if you are in a 4-point per passing touchdown league, definitely try and target a rushing upside a little more often. But I think even if you're going later, like targeting guys like Kyler Murray, Bo Nix. I know Bo Nix is coming off injury. Still think he'll be pretty mobile. Malik Willis, the mobility, like having a mobile quarterback in today's NFL is really, really good for an offense. So I think taking these guys later, what I'm going to do, I kept Kyler Murray in my keeper league. It was a tough decision between him and Rashee Rice was the 2 that we were weighing out. Um, but Kyler Murray, I just felt like the value later on is going to be amazing. I kept him for a round 15 pick, and we'll find out who falls to me in the draft for that Superflex league. But, at least I have him, set it and forget it. But if you feel a quarterback is falling way too far, definitely just take him. I don't care if it blows your strategy of late quarterback. If you can get Josh Allen in like round 4, by all means, have at it. But that's kind of my 2 cents. I kind of agreed with you on all the values, Tanner. So I don't feel like I really need to go into them in depth. Maybe I'll throw Jordan Love in there. Think he's just going way too late. He's got weapons all around him. Josh Jacobs, if he's suspended, what does that run game really look like? Are they going to have to lean on the pass game? Super interesting. But I think that's kind of the strategy that you got to approach. If you have a question about draft strategy, by all means, at BA Sports Podcast on Twitter, on X, shoot us a question. Be happy to answer. Anything else, Tanner, before we wrap this
Yeah, guys, or subscribe to the newsletter. You can always submit questions through there. Join the live stream. We see your comments live. We'd be happy to answer them as we go. A lot of good players at the position this year. A lot of guys you can take advantage of that are going late in drafts, especially when you wait on those opportunities. It gives you chances to really build out the depth of your roster, which in turn not only protects you from injuries later on in the season, but then also if you have swung and missed on a quarterback late, then now you have some trading chips to go and get a guy that's already proven himself in 2026.
Yep. I think that's going to do it for the quarterback preview. Hope this was helpful for you guys. We're going to do running backs next, then wide receivers to follow that. Then we're going to go in tight ends and round it out with a quick episode on kickers and defenses. And that's kind of the lineup for our preseason episodes. And then we'll get rolling into the season in less than a month from now. So if you have any draft questions, shoot them to us. We're happy to help you. Thank you all for listening to the BA Sports Podcast 2026 NFL Quarterback Preview. And good luck to all of y'all this weekend and upcoming weekends in your drafts. We'd love to help out wherever possible, so let us know. You can find rankings on the BA Sports Podcast website. It's BA Sports Podcast mailer page. Just search that on Google, and it will pop up with the rankings for the 2026 draft and some articles written on Fantasy Pros website. So be sure to check those out for all my thoughts on everything fantasy. And we'll see y'all next episode for the running back preview. Have a great day. Thank you all for listening. And we'll catch you next time on the BA Sports Podcast.
Got me feeling nicey.